on the air with us here. It is Mr. Evan from the Flight Sim Association. It's going to be a blast to hear from him. Thanks for coming on such a short notice there, Evan. How you doing? Say hello.
Always a pleasure to chat anytime.
Yeah, I'm glad that you made it, brother, and thanks for like I said, for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about Flight Sim Association? What is it? What it came from, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So some people may know me as one of the co-founders of Flight Sim Expo, which is North America's flight simulation conference and trade show. We just had our show a couple of months ago now in September. So if you've heard anything about Flight Sim Expo, maybe you saw Thrustmaster revealing their Boeing 737 yoke, maybe you saw Turtle Beach out with their yoke, or some of the big announcements from the show. So I'm one of the two people that helped put that show on, along with a pile of volunteers and others from around the community. Flight Simulation Association is something that the same group of us started trying to say, let's bring that experience of having a flight sim show to the community year-round. A lot of developers are great at interacting with the community. Some, though, are maybe a little bit hesitant to do that. How many times do you see a developer on, well, even what Robert is doing right now? Like, that's not a super common thing in our community. So we thought, is there a way that we can help bring some of those developers a little bit closer to the community, get them, not just posting on forums, but also coming out onto live streams and chatting with content creators and doing stuff like that. So for folks who haven't heard of us, you can find our website at flightsimassociation.com. And we basically do two things. If you're someone who's brand new to flight simulation, maybe you're someone who's thinking about getting into it, or you found Microsoft Flight Sim on the Xbox and now you're thinking, hey, this is kind of a cool thing. I want to maybe do this, like setting up a desktop and actually kind of getting into the more realistic side of it. What the Flight Simulation Association does is put together a whole bunch of the information that's out there on the internet and package it for you in one nice place. And it's all free, so you can log in, get access to all of our guides where we go and kind of put, here's all the information that you need to know to get started in one place. We've categorized a bunch of useful websites, including your own, and we do kind of a news roundup from all the websites in a nice emailed newsletter that goes out once a week on the Saturday mornings. We've also worked with groups that do one-on-one coaching. So I don't know if you're like me, when I got started in flight sim, I was kind of just fumbling through it and I learned as I was going, and that's great. And for a lot of people, that is the best way to do it. So that's why we put together all those guides and those websites. But if you're somebody who's new and you're thinking, hey, I really want to set up a flight sim that looks exactly like my Cirrus that I fly in real life, or you want to actually hear from somebody who's gone through this before about how to set up a yoke or even which yoke to buy, we have partnerships with groups that do one-on-one consulting. So they're experts who will literally sit down with you and say, what are your goals, what's your budget, and they'll give you recommendations for how to get started. That's not for everybody, of course, but for those who kind of appreciate that one-on-one touch, what we're doing is trying to make that easier for you to discover. So you can find all that at flightsimassociation.com. Now, if you're the second group, so you're somebody who is experienced, you've been around the community like Jeff or I have for years, what we're trying to do for you is, like I said, bring that developer connection more to life. So people that you might see at Flight Sim Expo, people like Turtle Beach or Thrustmaster or PMDG, we're trying to get them to come out and play in the content creator space and basically give you an opportunity to interact with them in a way that's a little bit different than just reading a forum post or catching up on social media. So this month, for example, on the 26th, we have one of the folks who was at the show who actually makes this really cool 3D printed product coming on to do a webinar, like a live stream, on how to get started in 3D printing. So that's a cool area, and of course you can go YouTube that if you want to, but here's an expert who knows all about it, and he'll be doing a live presentation, so kind of like a lecture that you might see in class or at school, 45-minute type time frame where he's going to go through some slides, show you some demonstrations, and then take your questions in real time. Those are webinars that we do a couple times a month. And then we also arrange these larger style panel discussions. So there's one of those that isn't even published yet, but I hope is going to be happening on December 18th. You're getting a little bit of an exclusive here because this isn't even public yet.
Nice.
The intention of these big panel discussions is let's bring developers from across the community together and get them talking about some interesting stuff. So back in July, we did one on what does the future of this world look like now that Xbox is here? How does that change the flight sim community we've all been part of? We had Orbix, Aerosoft, and a bunch of other big name developers talking about what that looks like for them. Coming up in December, the plan is to do a second one more around the process of add-on development. So we want to look at, And what does it take to make a scene?
Friendly environment and have an awful lot of fun at the same time. We are looking for
how much money does it cost to make those kinds of if you're a developer, and how do you actually sell that stuff? So we're trying to put a whole nice panel together of people right across the spectrum. So we'll have a couple of developers. Flightbeam is one of them. Flight FX is another one. We're going to have Orbix, who obviously runs Orbix Central, so you'll have the kind of Flight Sim store perspective. We've got a content creator coming on to give the perspective of, like, here's the end user who's kind of, buying these products. What does that look like? So we're really trying to give people this unique window into, what does it take to get started in flight simulation. And again, you can find all that stuff through our association. There's lots of product discounts. We have merch because everyone always asks for merch. So there's a couple of flight simulation t-shirts on there. And it's really just, an opportunity for us when we're not having a show, which we only do about once a year, just to kind of stay connected as a community of flight simmers, and especially flight simmers who come to these in-person shows.
That's actually, I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because we're already getting some questions in our Discord channel for you, specifically about Flight Sim Expo. And one question that I'll go ahead and bring up here is, Chad wants to know, how did the show go this year, and what are you looking at for improvements? So what can we all do better?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the question, Chad. And I'm reading along with the Discord as we go, so that's cool. Definitely, we're very happy with how the show went this year. It was a very weird year for us given the pandemic and everything else that was going on. And for a while, it kind of looked like it was going to be great, and maybe there were going to be no masks back in June. And then, Delta variant kind of took over. And actually, for a while, it looked like, well, gee, are we even going to be able to run a show with whatever is going on? So we were able to do it. We had more than 700 people there, some huge product reveals, and that was really exciting for us. And as we're looking at what, future years are going to be like, the challenge is just trying to figure out how does COVID play into all this, right? So, what does it look like after this winter? Are we going to see another big spike? Are people going to feel comfortable traveling? What are going to be the rules on masks and all these things? And that's a bit of a challenge for us to navigate. What we're doing right now is looking at the potential venues where maybe we would have people feeling a little more comfortable. So perhaps if it wasn't, totally enclosed in a hotel, but maybe a little bit more open in a museum, or maybe there's an outside component where you could actually be in a tent and listening to some stuff instead of having to be inside. So we're sort of exploring a few of those avenues where, in a world where we're still a little bit on edge with all the stuff that's going on, I think that just makes it a little bit easier. But certainly hoping to take the feedback we were getting from developers, and of course we've run a few surveys of people who've been to the show this year, trying to just take all that feedback in as we prepare for whatever our next show may be, which could be next year. We're hoping for 2022, and if not, then it'll be a year down the line in 23.
I remember years ago, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, the very first VATSIM convention was held at the Air and Space Museum there in Washington, D.C., and that, for me, that was a blast. I had a really good time with that. And then we did one at, I can't remember, I think it was the Hilton at Chicago O'Hare Airport. VAT USA did one there as well, and that was a really good time. Have you considered Air and Space Museum? And then I have a couple other questions that are coming in here as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at museums around the country. So the San Diego one actually was a very close runner-up in 2019 to host our event. So that's certainly on the table. And then a few others at different locations around the country. There's one in Houston that has some pretty solid potential that I was talking to a couple of days ago.
Houston,
and others. So, yeah.
At a museum?
So, we're really, when it comes to... Yeah. When it comes to that'd be the Lone Star Museum, we can look that up. When it comes to museums, right, like not every city has a big flight simulation or aviation museum, so that does kind of limit you a little bit more. Whereas obviously, if you're talking hotels or convention centers, obviously you can kind of go around the country and find a place that makes sense. But when it comes to museums, to find a place that's big enough and that's willing to shut down the entire place for us, which is what you need when you want to run a 2,000-person show, that's a little bit harder to find.
Nerd was asking about what the Lady of the Night. Oh, no, that wasn't for you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that in Discord. That was pretty funny. Question from Yuri. He's flying United in our Discord channel. He's actually from Finland, and he wants to know about the Flight Sim Association flight gear, the free flight sim that someone's interested but does not have the money to start the hobby. Have you flightgear.org? Have you checked that out?
Yeah, I think flight gear is really cool. So, again, we're basically sort of neutral when it comes to what we're recommending. Our job isn't to say, pick one platform or another. What we were trying to do was say, here's the spectrum. And there's not very many websites that you can go to that has a list of here are all the home flight simulators, here's what platforms they work on, here's what add-ons they support. And we have that on our website in a guide that's called Getting Started with Home Flight Simulation. So there's about 10 of them all told that are in that guide. And of course, FlightGear's one of them, works across platform, totally free, and basically driven by the community. So absolutely, and I've reached out to them every year for Flight Sim Expo. It's a bit tough for them because they are obviously a nonprofit group, and I think a lot of the folks who contribute are located in Europe. But I would love for FlightGear to come out to one of our shows. I don't think it's as well represented in like our world of flight simulation, the Microsoft Flight Sim P3D X-Plane group. So I'd love for FlightGear to actually come out to a show and say, hey, here's who we are, and maybe let people try it. I think they'd be finding a lot of people that are really excited about what they're offering.
That's very cool. Yeah, that would be really neat, wouldn't it? You were talking earlier about webinars, and you want to kind of expand on that a little bit? What's coming up, and what was the 3D printer one?
Sure. So you can go to flightsimassociation.com/webinars and you'll see what's coming up. And these are basically live streams with product experts or developers from the community who aren't coming on to sell stuff, right? So that's kind of what you go to their Twitch for, you go to their forums for. What we're saying is if there's somebody who's really good at doing something like 3D printing, say that, your business is making 3D printed flight simulation yokes. What I would do is say, hey, come on and give us an educational presentation on how to build good 3D printed yokes. And that's exactly what these are. So the one that's coming up next, which we're going to simulcast here on Sky Blue Radio, I believe, for everybody, is on November 26th. Yeah, so November 26th. And it's a gentleman named Phil who runs this thing called the Authenticate Project. It's really cool. It basically, he lives his life in virtual reality. So he doesn't want anything mouse keyboard. He wants everything to be VR. And he wants everything to be perfect. So in his view, you should be able to look at your flight control in the simulator, and if it has a button here, that button should exist in real life. Of course, you can't, buy a yoke that matches the Spitfire, which is the airplane that he was flying that day. So he just printed it himself. And he just said, I'm going to make this thing, and I'm going to 3D print it. And he now runs this repository of free 3D printing, like, blueprints, basically, that anyone can download. And if you have a 3D printer, you basically just take his model and it prints it. And if you don't have a 3D printer, he has like a network of people who do, where you can basically, commission somebody to do that for you. So if you've ever thought about getting into 3D printing, or if that's kind of an interesting area for you, this guy is the expert, and he's going to come on and in 45 minutes basically describe what that's all about to people, answer questions, and give us a good overview of what they're doing at Authenticate.
That's kind of funny because now that you mention it, and you talk about what he did, now I'm interested in 3D printing, so I'll be doing a little shopping here after the JT show, that's for sure. And it's really cool. Don't forget, folks, November 26th, that'll be streamed on Sky Blue Radio as well. So keep an eye on our social media as well as our website, and details will be provided there. Now, if you're interested in doing some flying this weekend, there's some awesome, cool stuff going on. VATSIM Friday Night Ops is going on. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, Evan? And it sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, so my other life, in addition to Flight Sim Expo and FSA, I'm also a controller on VATSIM. I've been controlling virtual airplanes for almost 20 years now. Kind of grew up on this.
You're getting old, huh?
Back. I know. I really, when I said it really does make me seem old, but it's still fun, and I still haven't found a way to give it up, so I guess that's a good sign. So anyone who flies VATSIM, we are doing right now, literally it's happening at the moment, the Friday night operations. Boston, Chicago, and National, DCA, are the three featured airports. So, of course, my facility is, I don't know how many controllers we have online. There's like 30 of something that are controlling right now across Boston Center, Approach. We've got Bradley, Providence, and like just a whole bunch of people.
Are you controlling right now?
Of course. I was until you sent me a message. And I had someone take over for me.
Well, thanks for doing that, buddy. I appreciate that.
No, it's all good. I'm on later tonight. So following this event goes until midnight. Following this is actually part of an annual thing we do at Boston called 60 Hours of ATC. So they started staffing at 10:30 this morning, and we are literally going to have continuous Boston Center staffing on VATSIM through till after 11 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night.
Nice.
So anytime today, tomorrow, Sunday, day or night, middle of the night, doesn't matter. We will be staffed up. And it's a really cool thing we get to do. You know, we do some, at night when it's quiet, we'll do suicide opposite Boston where we're landing and departing opposite directions, pointing airplanes right at each other, which is really fun in the overnight hours. And it means anyone from Europe or anyone who might otherwise have a tough time flying into our airspace, you can have coverage literally any time until Sunday night. So I'll be back on. I think I start at like 1 in the morning and then go for a couple of hours, and then I hand it off to someone on the West Coast to take it through the overnight.
I think what I'll do is Microsoft Flight Simulator came out with their update, was it yesterday? I think it was. I think I'll come fly that F-18 around your airspace. Is that all right with you? Does that sound all right?
Anytime after 3 a.m. because I'll be asleep.
I kind of had a feeling you were
going to say that. Then you can do whatever you want to the next guy.
I kind of had a feeling you were going to say that. Well, hey, give a shout-out to all our listeners right now around the world, United States, Brazil, Great Britain, Denmark, Great Britain, Sweden, Finland, Dominican Republic, and Germany, and Australia. Thank you so much, Evan, for coming out to be with us on Sky Blue Radio, and we're really looking forward to your webinars that'll be streamed here on Sky Blue Radio, and we're really looking forward to where we're going to be next year for Flight Sim Expo, because if you've never been to Flight Sim Expo, folks, you have absolutely got to go. We went to the one that was in Las Vegas, and we had a great time. We really had a great time. It was me, the nerd, Oddball, my beautiful bride, and I think Fred was there. There was a lot of us there, and it was a really good time. So you definitely need to make time for that once the news comes out for that. Thank you once again, Evan, and in your honor of coming on, and since you're up there in the northeastern part of the northern continent, I got some Neil Diamond coming up, that Sweet Caroline, and thank you again, my friend. I appreciate it.
That is perfect. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All right. We'll see you later. All right. So that was Evan from Flight Sim Expo. Here you go, my man. Time for some Sweet Caroline. Yeah.